The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is December 12th at 11 a.m. Welcome, everyone that has joined me live. Today, we're going to be talking about a new feature to version 2018.2 of ExagoBI called Filter by Formula. It does exactly what it sounds like, but before we get into any of that, I'd like to just verify that y'all can hear me okay. So a Y or a yes in the questions pane would be much appreciated. Let me know I'm coming through loud and clear and that everyone can see my screen. Beautiful. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you guys so much. Great. So welcome again. For anyone that's just joined us, I'll just reiterate really quickly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about a new feature of Exago. It's called Filter by Formula. We've got a few examples spun up for you guys, and as always, my coworkers are here to handle any questions that might be asked while I'm speaking. And of course, same as always, if a question is appropriate for the group, I will be sure to answer it live for everyone to hear, of course. Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and get started today. It is 11:01, so we are rolling, and today should be a fairly quick lab, but informative nonetheless. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay. All right, so we've got an agenda for today, as always. Fairly straightforward. I'm not going to spend too much time on the slides today. I'd really like to get into the product. I'm going to show filter by formula in ExpressView. We're going to do a dynamic field comparison as well as showing a date over date range comparison. It's very common that we get requests for things like year over year, quarter over quarter across a couple years. I'm going to show you how using filter by formula, the easiest and fastest way to get to those end results. And we're going to do it in ExpressView, right? That's great. Then we're going to talk about advanced reports. I'm not going to build any today because the purpose of this lab is really not to teach you guys how to build reports, but it's how to use this feature to the best of your ability. So we will talk about, of course, how to apply them, but applying them really feels very similar to applying a standard filter as you might be used to it. So the focus will be on how to increase your usability for your users, give them control and make it easy for them to really get to their end goal quickly and simply, right? So let's give our environment a refresh. We're going to start today in ExpressView, and I'm going to start from scratch. I can show you the finished product, but we're going to work towards that same goal. And I think I'd prefer to just start from scratch here without a goal in mind, right? We're going to build it up as we go. Great. So I'm going to make an order report today. I'm going to start with a bit of customer information just to identify who it corresponds to. And again, the data is not quite as important as the functionality that we're going to show. So please, if you could, focus on that for today. Let me just grab a couple fields here. What we're going to actually focus on is required date and shipped date for our first formula that we will then filter by. So these two are going to be on here initially to verify first that our formula is doing what we expect. And then, of course, we will likely remove them once we have the calculation working, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. The other thing I would like is some address information. So if you guys haven't used ExpressView formulas yet, we have this new selected section with a style as well as a formula selection menu here. Then if I click on any column, I'm going to go ahead and open up this formula editor. So I know that we've done this on labs before, but for anyone that maybe is unfamiliar, writing a formula in ExpressView should feel very much like writing a formula in the Advanced Report Designer. The window is a bit smaller, sure, but really the feel should be the same. So I'm going to do a quick concatenation. We're going to do the address with the new line function to give us some spacing that is normal with an address. I'm sorry, that word was eluding me. So we'll do the address, and then we'll want the city, right? City will probably just want some space, and then the region. Oh, and sorry about that. I actually want the ship city. So let's go ahead and change this to be the ship city so that this all matches. We've got the region, then we'll just put some space. Talking and typing's about the hardest thing to do. And the postal code, right? Grab that ship postal code again. Great. So now I've got my new function here. We'll just go ahead and give that a name that we like, right? Great. All right, so I'm going to group by customer ID. Let's just run this report. Right off the bat, I'd like to see what we have, right? So this makes sense. Got our addresses, our orders, order IDs. All I really want is a count for the order IDs, so I'm going to set these to none. And we'll move forward from here. Great. Okay, so what I'd like to do at this point is build us a formula. Let's use required date, and I will re-add the field in just a moment, but let's build our first formula. All we'd like to check for here is whether or not the required date is before the shipped date. Now, logically speaking, the required date corresponds to whatever date the customer who placed the order indicated they needed the order by. I am required to have this product by X. If we ship it after the required date, there's not really a good chance that it's going to get there by the required date. So what I'm going to do here is just check for less than or equal to the shipped date. Okay, now this is going to return true or false. And if I turn live data on, we're going to see false, indicating that the order is on time. Let's add in the required date so we can actually see the fields in front of us, right? Got required date, we got shipped date. If this shipped in December of 2014, it definitely made it here on time by January, unless something really crazy happened in transit there. So I'm going to name this, let's name it on time. Okay. Now, the first thing that I might notice here is that we've got false and true, and that doesn't make quite as much sense to the end user, unless your end users are very accustomed to Booleans. But before I change this to be a little bit more end user friendly, the first thing I'd like to show you is really just how to filter by this formula field. Now, in ExpressView, one thing to be aware of is that before you filter by a formula, you need to have it on your canvas. We're not going to, in ExpressView, be able to simply define a filter by a formula right in this UI over here. It does need to exist on our canvas. That's fine, right? I've got it right here, no problem. If I'd like on time to be equal to true, now again, with our end users in mind, evaluating a column called on time for true values indicating that an order is late really is not the most intuitive way to do this. But logically, it's still correct. So I'm going to show you how to make this a bit more meaningful to your end users. But I just wanted to indicate that right off the bat, we can filter by this formula value. That alone is a new functionality. As always, if you do have any questions as I move throughout the lab, feel free to type them in the box. It looks like we're good for now. But just at any point, throw us a question, and we do have folks monitoring it, of course, at all times. All right, great. So the best way to make this more end-user friendly is to return a value that makes a bit more sense to them. So what I'm going to do is come back to my formula editor. I'm going to still use the same comparison, but I'm going to use it inside an if statement. So we're going to say if our condition is going to be the evaluation that we were just doing. Required date is less than or equal to shipped date. Consequent is going to be, if that is true, what would I like to return? I'm going to return late, because to my end users, if it says late, they're going to know that the order is very likely late or was late. And then, of course, on time if else, right? So if this is not the case, then the shipped date is less than the required date, and we are all good. We're on time. All right, so what I'm going to do first is remove this filter since our field has changed. This will no longer evaluate to true or false. Go ahead and press live data. We'll see all of our values with the same ones evaluating to late, right? This is the same date. So that shipping would have to be very quick to get the order there on time. So we're showing late. And at this point, I'll go ahead and remove these two fields since we've done that check of our formula. We know the formula is returning what we would expect. Now I can filter by this field, again, on time, though same column name. It is a different formula at this point. And we can set it equal to late. So again, for our end users, this makes a lot more sense. Beautiful. If you are an end user watching this, this is going to be the best way to get a answer and a return value that makes the most sense to you, right? So if statements are very helpful in that they allow you to specify that return as opposed to just showing true or false. All right. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and build this report up a bit more. We've got some other formulas that I'd like to show you today, and the additional illustration of how to build formulas is always helpful as well. So we're gonna keep going here. The question pane looks good. I think Nick's doing a great job with any that have come in, so I think we're all good to go. So I'll turn live data off. I'm gonna ungroup by the customer ID. And remove this filter. We're really going to target a different use case now, though I'll leave the on time column here because why not? Okay, so at this point, I'd like to talk about some date comparisons. And I did at the top of the call indicate that we'll talk about doing, year over year, quarter over quarter. These are really common questions that we see folks wanting to report off of. Okay, great. Quick question that I would just like to address for the group because it's a bit of a housekeeping question, but all of you, whether you are in attendance or watching this afterwards, are going to be sent a recording of the lab. They are always hosted on our support site as well as our YouTube channel. So while we'll email you a link, they are hosted in those areas as well, and you can find the entire library of labs there. So you're always free to check those out. We also have a basic training series that our services team put together. You'll hear Nick Cortina's voice on those, and I'm sure you're familiar with his voice and presentation from the labs that he's done as well. So there's lots of good information there. All right, sorry about that, guys. Let's get back to the use case at hand. I'm going to use this order date field, but I'm going to add it again because I'd like to keep this one here for, again, the proof, if you will. And we're going to go ahead and do year of order date, right? Very simple formula. Year's not anything that I don't think anyone is unfamiliar with this particular calculation, and I'll just call it year. We're going to go ahead and group by. So if I press live data, you'll simply see that we are grouping by the year, right? So we've got and if I reverse it, we'll see 2018 first, 2016. So my data is extending from 2014 to 2018, just to give everyone watching an idea of what we're working with. Okay, and I'll do one more. I'll add the order date in again so that we can use it in yet another calculation. And this time, I'm going to use it in a quarter. So we can do quarter number in this case. We do have quarter number, and I believe it's quarter name. Yep, so quarter name will return Q1, Q2. Quarter number will return 1, 2, 3, just that number value there. We'll do it of order date yet again. Great. Go ahead and label this quarter. Gosh, typing and talking, I'm telling you. Okay, great. And I'll also group by the quarter. So if I press live data again, we're going to see the year followed by each of the quarters. So we see again for 2018, I have quarter 1 and 2. 2016, I believe I have, let's collapse our groupings here. And then we can open them up. Little illustration of the navigation of ExpressView. You can hide all your group content, and then these arrows will actually expand or collapse each grouping for you. So I've expanded to the lowest level now and back up. Okay, great. Great, so what's the point of doing this, right? You guys all know how to build an ExpressView. At this point, I'd like to filter by these two groupings that I've just created. So if I go ahead and apply a filter on the year, and nothing will change yet until I press this Apply Changes button. I'm going to do an is one of, so we can filter for multiple values. I'll filter for 2018, maybe 2016, and 2015. So we'll take out 2014 here. Maybe we'll just do for 2 of these so that you guys can see 2018 disappear. Now, if I also want to filter by the quarter, I can go ahead and do so, and we'll do an is one of again. I'll just set this one to 2 for now. So when I apply changes, we're going to see the first most obvious thing that we see is when is that 2018 has been eliminated. Also, 2016 had Q1 data before. That has been eliminated as well. I can collapse this up here so that you guys can see the entire report has been really minimized, right? We've filtered it, looking for a better word, but really all we've done is filter the report. All right, great. So at this point, it should be very clear to you guys. The power here is the ability to get a very quick comparison between really years and quarters without filtering to a date range. And I think this is going to become very clear when I bring up an advanced report that you might be familiar with as a canned report. Maybe it's something your users aren't designing themselves, but that you guys are building for them. So let me go ahead and open up an advanced report, right? So I've got our original copy here. This is built without filter by formula. So I'll go ahead and run it. The data on the report is really not the focus here, other than how it's being filtered, of course. Because this was built before filter by formula was a feature, we're prompting the user, when I run the report, for a date range. They can plug in values. At this point, we'll see data for all of 2015 and 2016. If I press OK here, we'll see that I've actually applied interactive filters. And again, the data is not important. Just understand that we're going to compare the ordered counts to show that we filtered at a later date. But if I open the interactive filters up, we see that we have data from 2015 and 2016, just as the prompt indicated, and all 4 quarters at this point. So because interactive filters have always been able to be based on a formula, we can prompt at this point for specific years and quarters. And then if I select one, you can see that this is a much smaller subset of data, filtering it only to 1 quarter for these 2 years. Now I'd like to show how much easier it is when we do have this filter by formula feature, and easier in this case for your end users, which really is our common goal. Before I'll go into how we added them, but really I'd like to just illustrate this part. We have titles for our filters, and certainly you saw that in the other report, but I can also create a filter that asks for the year and a filter that asks for the quarter number. Now, not only do my users not need to select a date range and find the dates that are maybe years and years apart in the calendar picker, they can pick years specifically and then quarters. So in this case, I'll filter it just to show us quarter 2. So we mimic what we did on the interactivity of the original report. And I've got that same first order count value here, right? So instead of it being multiple steps with perhaps a bit of confusion for my end users, I have one step, a simple prompt. I used those titles to actually give my users a little context. What is it expecting, and how should I input that? Right? For our quarters, we actually had 1, 2, 3, or 4 as the possible inputs. And I can always continue to filter here. If I'd like, if I bring back a broader set, I can filter it down just like before. But my initial prompt might get me much closer to what I was looking for instead of it being a multi-step process. Let's peek at just how to add those filters. It is a little different than ExpressView, so I'd just like to highlight the difference here. From here, from the Advanced Designer, I can add it without having the column on the report first. So if I drag over the order date field, right, because that's what my formula is going to really base in, press my little function button, and I get the date field that is already there, right? So you'll always start with whatever you have on here. Now, if I open this up, I can go ahead and year of order date, right? We've already got them here. This part is just the formula editor. And then they'll appear here. The title is right to the right of that at this point. So you can go ahead and add a prompt or simply just a title. whatever you guys would like to use this as is up to you. It displays like I showed on the prompt. And then finally, and this part's not new, but let's just show start to finish. I can also add interactive filters that, of course, can also be based on a formula. And again, this is not new, but in order to configure the output that you guys just saw, I added a year of the order date filter. My little FX button's right here. It'll bring me to that same formula editor. I added a quarter number. We can title them here as well. So you saw that on output, just says year and quarter. I can add my titles here just the same. Again, this is not new. I just want to make sure that all of the info does exist in this same lab. I selected a multiple choice and asked that it initially display the filter on the panel. Of course, you guys are aware, if I didn't click initially display on panel, it would be available via this plus button in the filters menu. All right. So I promised a quick lab today. It's about 21 minutes in, and we are about through with a good overview of filter by formula. We showed some usability in ExpressView, as well as ways to improve usability on a canned report using the Advanced Report Designer. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Our next lab is going to stay with the filter function theme. We're going to be doing custom filter functions. So this is going to be the ability to modify filter functions that we've given you, to create your own, and really ways to use them to extend your use of ExagoBI and your users' use of ExagoBI. So at this point, we will hang out, of course, for any questions that we might see. I really hope you guys all enjoyed it. I know it was quick, but it's got some good meat to it. So certainly we welcome any feedback that you might have on the survey that you'll get when you leave. With that, thank you all for attending, and happy reporting. One last thing to mention, and for any of you that have already left, we will put this in the post for the next lab, of course, as well. But the next one is an admin lab. It will be technical in nature, and we will be showing some code. So in prep for that, just a bit of context and information to make sure that we do attract the right folks to that lab. With that, again, happy reporting.